So give a continuation to chapter 5 of part 2, chapter that deals with spontaneous physical manifestations. We should start on question 5 today on my book, but if anybody has anything different, let me know. The last time that we met was all the way back last year, 12, 18, 20. And it is my understanding that we stop at item 5.
Yes.
But since it's been such a long time, and again, it was last year that we saw this book again, a quick recap. This part of the chapter deals with apportation, which basically is the transportation of an object, a thing, from one point to another, point A to point B. Now, this point A and point B could be the physical plane to another physical plane, okay, meaning that I could bring an object that is from, let's say, from my garden to inside of my house, okay, or it could be point A, B in the spiritual world. That meaning that I could bring something from the spiritual world to the physical world. Okay. We studied that the process of apportation is somewhat an upgrade in the physical phenomena. It's still a physical phenomena. It still requires ectoplasm being donated by a medium, but requires more from a medium than just being a producer of ectoplasm. That in the process of apportation, there is a more intense participation of that medium, and therefore it requires a better prepared medium. As we saw before in the other physical phenomena like reps and even poltergeisters and things like that, it did not require much of the participation of the medium except for the donation of the ectoplasm. And very often the medium is not even aware, or most of the time the medium is not even aware of its capabilities as a medium. In the process of apportation, it requires a medium to be better prepared. It requires an environment to be better prepared, not only the medium, but if there are others in that room where that the phenomena is to take place, it requires the concentration, the positive attitude of all the members, all the individuals in that room. While the lesser, so to say, but don't take me wrong here, physical phenomena many mediums may participate, meaning that you could collect fluids from many different mediums for a phenomenon. In the case of apportation, it's only one medium. It's one medium who will be the incarnate participant in the phenomena, and only one as well. Also, as we say, all the physical phenomena are usually preferred by a spirit that has some knowledge, has some understanding, but it's not a really highly evolved spirit, because a highly evolved spirit has a very, very ethereal perispirit, a more spiritualized perispirits, and it becomes extremely difficult, if not impossible, to interact with more dense matter like ectoplasm. So although, especially in the case of apparitions, the spirits who work with those phenomena have some good knowledge, perhaps above us, perhaps evolved, but not all the way up there yet. And very often, as we're going to see in the example of these questions here, and very often the ability to perform are conditioned by the permission of a more evolved spirits that will be involved in the cases. And because the case of apparitions, as we had seen the very beginning of this chapter, very often transportation of the objects are objects of a gentle, pleasing, peaceful nature, candies, flowers, perfumes, something that it's pleasing to our senses, something that brings contentment to us, in itself demonstrated a goodwill, a good intention of the workers in the spiritual world to bring something to us. Okay, so you would expect that the spirits working with this phenomena are spirits well intended, are spirits good intentions. Okay, and very often, as we're going to see over here by the answers of Erastus, there is very often a more evolved spirit in the control of the situation, guiding the spirit that will perform those phenomena. Okay, so in this particular case now we have a series of questions that is placed by Kardec, and receiving answers from an spirit that was performing or is able to perform the phenomenon of apparition. But Kardec and Erastus, they live clear, just what I have said here, that the spirit know how to perform the phenomenon, but has very limited understanding of how the whole thing works itself. Okay, it's pretty much like us, we are able to use our cell phone, or most of you, because I'm very limited use of my cell phone. I may use 1% of its capability, and I have no idea how it works. I use it. If you ask me how does it work, my answer, I don't know. Or you make up something. Very often, the same case is with those spirits. They have some understanding, they perform it, but they don't know really how does it work. All of us are breathing right now, but if you ask most people the process of breathing, no, most of us would not have an answer, but we do it. So for this questionnaire, when they evoke the spirit, Kardec put the questions. Very often, Erasto would complement the answer or would correct the answer given by the spirit who have limited understanding. And of course, Erastus, being a much more evolved spirits, a disciple of Paul of Tarsus, student of mediumship in the spiritual world, is much better prepared to give answer the question that Kardec placed to that spirit. And it's a series of questions. Now we continue with question number 5. I think it's for those who have not read before. Go back. It's item 99 to questions 1 to 5, because they are very interesting and very useful. So I'm going to read first.
Yes. Where do you want me to start? Number 5 or
number 5?
Okay. I got to get number 5. Okay.
Unless somebody has a... João, you have it before 5? Because I saw you put on the...
He has it now.
Okay.
Okay. Where do you get the flowers and candy you bring to us? Gotta pull it up. I get the flowers from various gardens that I find pleasing. And the candy maker must have noticed the disappearance. I get it wherever I like. The candy maker doesn't notice anything since I put other candy in its place. Number 7. But the rings are valuable. Where did you get those? Haven't you harmed whomever you took them from? I took them from places unknown to anybody and in a way that it wouldn't harm anyone. Remarked by Eratus. I think the matter was explained incompletely due to the lack of understanding of the spirit who responded. Yes, there could have been real harm, but this spirit did not want to appear to have stolen anything. An object can only be replaced by one that is identical, with the same shape and the same value. Hence, if the spirit saw the possibility of replacing an object that it took with a similar one, it would not have had any reason to take the object in the first place because it could have simply used the replacement.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
So obviously this spirit had performed some operations of candies and flowers and rings. And of the question is, where did I get them from? And the answer is, well, I go to the garden, I get the flowers, I go to a candy place, a candy maker, and I take some. And the rings I take from places where nobody would notice that they were missing. And another obvious question is basically, is that not stolen? If you go to the store and take candy and bring to us without paying for it, just because you are in a spirit, discarnate the spirit, doesn't that constitute stolen? And the spirit gives an answer that he replaces them with other candies. He replaces the rings with other rings. And Erastus comes, as I explained to you, Erastus complements or corrects the answer for the spirit, says, not really. When they take the candles will be missing. When they take the rings will be missing. Because why would he go to the trouble of taking cans from a candy store and then replace with others if he already had the others or not being the others? It doesn't make any sense. So naturally, if I go to the garden and I pick a flower from the garden, and when my wife goes over there and look at, it's gonna be missing a flower from that tree, for that plant. No, they're not going to replace that flower with a fake flowers or a flower brought from the spiritual world. No, it'll just be picked and that's it. Now, I would agree that it's likely that those rings that come from places where nobody would be missing them because then it's a big miss. But a couple of candies here or there, I mean, I'm going to call it theft, perhaps, but no, if it be ex- extremely technical, yeah. But a couple of candies here and there just to show the ability of the spirit, the ability of the process of operation is not such a big deal. But there is no kind of replacement according to Erastus right there. Comments, questions?
Okay. Continue.
Yeah, please.
Okay. Is it possible to apport flowers from another planet? No, that is not possible for me. To Eratus. Do other spirits have such power? No, it is impossible because of the environmental differences. Could you
Thanks.
bring? Okay.
Thanks. That's very important.
Yeah.
Um, so you see here that God asked if he can bring an object, flower, so to say, from another planet. And the spirit says no. And Kardec at this time doesn't even wait for Eras give his input. He goes to Eras to say, what about you? Can you do it? Since you are more evolved. And the answer again, it's no. And the reason is because of environmental differences. Again, we studied that in the beginning of spiritism, that we spirits, we can inhabit anywhere, right? According to our degree of progress, how we are morally, intellectually evolved, we will transit to different places of existence, different worlds, different planets or stars, whatever celestial body you pick. And our perispirit will utilize whatever kinds of elements, whatever is the chemistry or the physics of that celestial body to produce a physical body if you need a physical body. So right now on Earth, we form a physical body using the elements that are on Earth that we can utilize to form a physical body, right? If going to reincarnate, let's say, in Jupiter, our perispirit will collect the whatever's in Jupiter that can form the physical body that we need to live in Jupiter in accordance to whatever living in Jupiter means. We have no idea what it is. I doubt that we will be breathing oxygen, that we will be eating, requiring proteins, but I don't know. I have no idea. Nobody has an idea, right? But we will be a body that is compatible with that environment, that is made of the elements of that environment. Therefore, I can perform the apportation of things that pertains to earth and the spiritual world associated with earth. Okay, that's very important. But I cannot bring from another planet where the conditions and where the elements, let's say, are different, because the incompatibility even of the ectoplasm and everything that's pertain to this planet. So it is limited. The apportation is limited in our case to earth and the spiritual world pertaining to earth. Okay, so let's say Nosular, other spiritual colonies that are associated to earth. Those the elements, the things in there are also comparable with the physical world of earth. So that's possible. Does it make sense?
Mhm.
Okay, so move on.
Okay. Number 9. Could you bring flowers from another hemisphere, from the tropics, for example? Since it is still the Earth, I can. Can you make the objects you brought disappear and return them? Gotta move on. Okay. As easily as I brought them, I could return them at will. Number 11. Isn't producing the phenomenon of apportation troublesome for you? Doesn't it cause you any problems? It isn't troublesome when I have due permission, but it could cause big problems if I wanted to produce them without being authorized. Remark by Eratus. He does not want to say that it is problematic, although it really is, because he is forced to perform an operation that is material, so to speak.
Okay, thanks. So, okay, so yes, the spirits be able to transport, to apport, if you prefer, um, objects from any part of Earth, just as long as Earth and the physical and the spiritual world associated with Earth. So it could be from one hemisphere to another, from one continent to another, from the oceans to land, from land to the ocean, whatever. Okay, to make them appear and disappear. To make them disappear is just the reverse of make them appear. Just it's easily, and that's not a big deal. Can the phenomenon of apportation be troublesome? The spirit rather say that it's not. Just as long as that he does with permission, he won't get in trouble. It's almost like a kid to say, if mom and dad let me do it, I can do it. But if they don't let me do it and I get caught, I'll be in serious trouble here. But Eras come and corrects him that it's not topography, it's complex, as you had as you had already sorry, as you had already spoke. It requires a good amount of effort from both the physical and the spiritual world, and the spirit has to associate with matter. And regardless of how still materialized perispirit may be, you still just think about it, still have to deal with gross matter, okay, which is not that simple for the spirit who now carries a perispirit that is ethereal. We still have to associate with things that is much more dense than than the perispirit, including the ectoplasm. You should assume the ectoplasm is something highly dense in comparison to the perispirit because it's produced by us, okay, as the constitution pretty much of physical things, okay?
Okay. Number 12. What difficulties might you encounter? None, besides bad fluidic conditions, which could be unfavorable.
Okay, so here the spirit insists that there is no difficulties for him. And yes, the major barrier to perform a good apparition is likely to come from us, from the physical world. Is likely to be it's more like to be a problem with the physical world than with the spiritual world. Remember that there is a medium which there is spirit, I'm sorry, that is able to perform it. There is a more evolved spirit giving it their individual guidance. And that's from the spiritual world and from the physical world. We need to be in a high degree of concentration, not only the meal itself, but everybody present. Okay. And we are more likely to lose our concentration. The medium may not have a good day that day. Medium may be dealing with difficulties at work. The medium may have eating something that makes it difficult to produce and to release ectoplasm. Very often, the centers that still perform physical phenomena, they are very restricted on with the mediums. The mediums have to have a different diet. Very often, they do not allow them to eat meat. In some cases, they not only allow but suggest that the medium may eat fish because of the amount of nitrates for some reason that I don't know. Nitrates is good for some physical phenomena. I don't understand the reason behind that. So naturally, alcohol, tobacco, drugs, recreational drugs, and even pharmacotherapy may interfere. So there is a lot of things in our physical world that could make it difficult.
Mm.
So the former says, besides the fluidic conditions, which could be unfavorable. So there's many things from our side, on the incarnate side, that could make those fluidic conditions unfavorable.
Mm.
And of course, the number one would be our inability to concentrate, to be more worried about the results of the game or what's going on in the soap operas.
Mm.
questions?
Okay. Number 13. How do you bring the object? Do you carry it? Do you carry it in your hand
Shh, hold on.
and hold it
Hold on, hold on.
myself?
Avery. Shh, quiet. Thank you.
Remark by erratic. He does not explain very clearly how he does it because he does not actually unfold the object within his person. However, since his personal fluid can dilate itself and is penetrable and expandable, he combines a portion of it with, with a portion of the medium's own animalized fluid. It is within this mixture that he hides and carries the object chosen for apportation. So it is incorrect for him to say that he enfolds it within himself.
Thanks. So this is a very complex answer from Erastus. It's a difficult thing for us to make to understand it. Naturally, the spirit does not know how he's able to do it, and his answer is unfolded within himself. He's almost saying that he makes the object a part of himself, and that's corrects him that it's not exactly like that. It seems like the spirit makes his own fluid a part of himself, which
Mm,
may be or may not be. Whereas corrects that, remember that I started in the very beginning, that the physical phenomena require three things: the fluids from the mediums, ectoplasm, the fluids from the spirit, don't really know what it is, and very often fluids from nature itself, right? And we're talking about the point zero energy. That's just a theory, of course, but that's a good theory itself in itself. And if you remember our lecture on the physical phenomena when we spoke of point zero energy, um, so the way that it's transported is the association of those three fluids, something from the environment, something from the medium, something for the spirit, combined is able to involve that subject, whatever they want to bring, object, whatever they bring in, and be transported that way. The spirit does not have to get his hands and pick up and carry. No, is the three things, those fluids combined form something that involves that thing that they bring in, and that thing can be brought with them. And by the way, regardless of size and weight. Um, I don't think it's a good explanation either for me, not for Erastus. I think there is a lot of more questions to this answer. Okay, but my feelings is that Erastus say that's all you guys need to know for now. Okay, wait for spiritism revelations part 2 to come, because for now that's all you guys can handle.
okay.
Okay, questions?
Okay.
Hey Elmo, uh, do we have nowadays a good use for apportation besides a proof of a phenomena? Like I was thinking, I don't know, maybe a place that where people are hungry and have no access to food. You use that as a means to help people. Do we do that like we do with psychography and psychophony and other things or it just was just a tool of the past to prove a point, and nowadays is it's not used anymore.
Lost Elmo. No.
Seems like it.
Okay.
But
He may be explaining it.
I think he muted himself because of the dog, and maybe,
yeah.
you know. So
Oh,
um,
yes, yes, yes. I did mute myself because of the dog. Sorry. um, so I think what I was saying for your answer is, as you're going to read some of the questions, see where I'm coming from. That I kind of believe that there's more apportations around there happening in many situations that we are not aware of it.
Mm.
Um, in let's say in a spirit center, a that produce good work, um, there is no need to perform apportation to create believers, right? To change people's mind. If you're going to the spiritist center, there is a serious spiritist center, it's because you already believe it in it. Without or with apportations, not gonna make much of a difference. To make apportations with the intention of create believers who are completely close to the idea, it'll be a waste of resource because they're not going to believe in any way. You know, even if they see, they will not believe. But I think that there are true merit of certain individuals, certain communities, some apportations happening um, that are not revealed to be apportations. I think a group of good spirits are helping individuals out there without knowing that they're being helped through this kind of phenomena.
Can you give us an example?
Mm. As you can go into read ahead here, and that's what make me think of it,
Oh,
is
okay.
when the spirit says, can you make things disappear? And the spirit said, yeah, and it happens all the time. We do that a lot. So I reflect, if they do make things disappear, why don't they make things appear? If you make things disappear for perhaps a good reason, couldn't they not make things appear also for a good reason? So of course, it's completely hypothetical. It's my understanding, but that is my only way that can answer Renato's question.
Mm.
That I think there are needs and means of apportation happening out there a lot more than we think to help individuals, and you just don't know there is apportation. A silly example is if I'm hanging and walking around and I find an apple on the street that is completely clean and used, I mean, could that be an apportation? Could somebody brought an apple there for me because I was so hungry? Again, it's completely hypothetical here, okay? But I believed in that possibility. The idea that all those apportations, all those things is done solo with the idea of convincing or to prove a fact, I think it's a little bit shallow. I think good spirits do a lot of work for the sake of doing good work, not to convincing or to prove anything to anyone.
Mm.
Yeah, I was thinking more of not to believers or this kind of stuff, more of in order to help per se,
Yeah, but that's
like
exactly what I'm
like we
saying.
yeah, like we do with the passes. And even, I understand that, why go to the trouble to appear rice and beans in somewhere's house when you can just donate and do the work yourself. But I was just trying to understand if the Spiritans explored that option to help. But as you well said, you believe that it makes sense that maybe not us as spirits in the physical realm are doing that, but the spirits themselves utilize um, our fluids to do that by themselves.
Yes, which is a much more complex thing, right? It's a more difficult thing that require a medium in a state of concentration, willing to participate in this work and to assist individuals perhaps at a long distance. Through my understanding, I think it's very possible, although I never read anything on it. I don't know if that's really possible. Um, in a spiritist center, let's say, there is not much of a need of that, except in cases of a physical treatment where there is um, apportations of even objects to assist people in some health conditions to help perform spiritual surgeries and things like that. That has been documented. And again, through merit, a spirit may be able to bring a nice smell to spiritual center. Then that has happened. We know that has happened. I know that spirit of Shayla used know every time that she would show up, she would bring with her smell of flowers and things just to be pleasing, to be nice to us. That has happened.
And now the apportation will only be the element will only be brought if it exists on the physical realm, right? Even though it exists on the spiritual realm. Let's say that there is a certain kind of flower that only exists on the spiritual realm. It does not exist yet, or there's no purpose here on the physical realm. So will not be apported to our physical realm, right?
Mm. Um, I would have to question what would be the utility of bringing something that we don't have over here. Okay, so my answer would be likely not, because it's something that perhaps would not be useful for us over here. Um, because when we read about or you listen to people saying about this kind of apportations, like things related to us in our physical world. So it's more, I think it's been more likely things that would have utility or could be useful to us here. They would make some connection, some sense to our lives here now.
Mm.
Does it make sense?
Yeah, I was thinking in maybe the spirits. I'm sure that they don't work like that, but since we are open a little bit, uh, they show to us something that comes from the spiritual realm, like so to show us that it exists. Some things exist on the spiritual realm that do not exist in here. Just we know that the evolution of things going forward. But you're right. There's no purpose for that right now. It's not gonna help us in anything. So
Yeah.
The phenomenon itself is already a proof that, itself does not to be too science fiction.
Yeah. I don't think the spirits would have the intention to anticipate our future, perhaps to create more questions, unnecessary work for us. We have enough to deal with already, have here already.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Continue, Elmo.
Yes, please.
Okay. 14. Could you just as easily carry a heavier object, 100 pounds, for example? Weight doesn't matter. We bring flowers because they are more pleasant than a weightier object, remarked by Erastus. This is correct. He can carry 200 or 400-pound objects because the gravity that exists for you is non existent for him. But here again, he does not really understand what is happening. The mass of the combined fluids is proportional to the mass of the object. In other words, the force must be in proportion to the resistance. Thus, if a spirit only carries a flower or other light object, it is often because it cannot find either the medium or itself the elements needed for any greater effort.
Okay. That's another complex, difficult answer here. It's when he says because the gravity that exists for you is non-existent for him, it's very hard for me to grasp what he means by that. But the one-to-one relationship of of the object to be transported, the mass of the the mass of the object to be transported, and the amount of fluid necessary to create a one-to-one relationship here, that's easy for me to understand, which leads for us to see the importance and the difficulty of apportation starting here, that the medium will need to have, the spirit will need to have a large amount of fluid to be proportional with the mass of the object to be transported. So to bring a flower from the garden inside of the center will require the amount of fluid that is one-to-one compatible with the mass of the flower. Once you do that, you somewhat, and I don't understand that, somewhat you kind of eliminate gravity. Gravity would not function, would not be, it will not be a force to that flower. If you're gonna bring a 3-pound stone, you'd have the amount of fluid that is compatible with a 3-pound uh, rock from the street, and therefore that would make gravity null, and the weight would not be a factor. If you're gonna bring a truck inside of the place, then you're gonna have a massive amount of of fluid to make any one-to-one compatible with the mass of the truck. And of course, ask why, right? But the how do you eliminate the gravity here? It's beyond me. I do not understand that. And that is the reason spirits can lift everything, as you saw in the beginning, that it's not really necessary when they lift the piano, that is 4 spirits, one on each feet of the piano, and to lift it up. No, it's done by enclosing that piano with a one-to-one comparable amount of fluid, and then that fluid act upon the will of the spirit. And then they can make it lift, dance, go to the right, go to the left at their will.
Mm.
Which demonstrate to be quite a complex phenomena. Could imagine if just to lift in process of levitations and this more simple kind of physical phenomena already requires that amount. Now to transport it, to make it basically invisible, to and then bring to a place and now make it visible again. The complexity of so many steps that is required here makes the phenomena very difficult to be performed. So when the spirit says, oh, it's no trouble at all, Eros corrects him, no, it is trouble. It's not that easy. It's not that simple.
So, how do we have information how the process of learning to do all that is done? Like, let's say that for the spirit that's more evolved, it's naturally to do it. It knows, or it has to be go to the the school of moving things, or how do we have information how is spirit for
No,
example, for us,
I
we
don't.
have to study. We don't, right?
I don't have any information on. No, I don't know if they have to go to take a course, go to a seminar, they have to graduate and get a diploma. No, I don't know how they. I mean, I'm guessing like in that movie Ghost, when the dead guy spent a long time trying to figure out how to move physical objects, how to move a can. There was a can in the subway that he keeps trying to do something with it, and another
Kick it.
spirit, huh?
He's trying to kick a can.
Yeah, whatever thing. And there is another spirit that not really evolved, but had a know-how, keeps teaching him. I think it would be pretty much on that line of learning. But I would say when you get to a more evolved or more complex kind of activity, that I won't be surprised if they have places where they teach them those things. But I never read. Did you wrong any kind of school for, so to say?
No, I know, but everything we can learn there. So there's
Yeah.
opportunities of learning everywhere. So I'm sure there is something.
Oh, it's probably like André Luiz with his mentors when he goes through many experiences, and there is also a mentor guide them and teach him into how to do things.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be surprised if there is actually a school where you go and you take lessons, though. To me, it's not far-fetched.
Thank you.
Okay. Continue, Elmo.
Yep.
Okay, 15.
Mm-hmm.
Are there cases where objects disappear for some unknown reason, but which are in fact taken by spirits? That happens a lot, more often than you might think. It may be remedied by simply asking the spirit to return the object that disappeared. Remarked by Eratus. That is true, but sometimes what has been taken is taken for good, because such objects that disappear from the house are almost always taken a long ways away. However, since the taking of objects requires the same fluidic conditions as apportations, it could only occur with the help of a medium endowed with special faculties. Thus, when something has disappeared, if it much more likely happened due to your own carelessness rather than because of some spirit.
That's another difficult answer to me to understand. So can objects disappear for unknown reasons, and those objects being actually being taken by spirits, and the answer, yeah, it happens a lot, more than you imagine, right? Um, and they now here the spirit says the remedy is to ask the spirit to bring it back. And Erastus differ from the answer from the spirit, says that usually, indeed, it happens a lot, but usually when those things are taken, they are taken for good because they go much farther than we think. It's not just, no, bring it back. So the skills that when you lose your keys was the spirit, likely it was not, because otherwise you'll never find your keys, okay? But the complexity here comes from the medium's part. We have just studied that apportation requires a concentration of a medium and 1 medium only to be somewhat in a state of mediumistic trance. And what is this is telling us here that when it happens, it's something happened or something disappear, it's more likely happen due to your own carelessness rather than because of some spirit. Because it's very unlikely that things will disappear being of a spiritual nature, exactly because it requires a medium to be in a state of a mediumistic trance, donate its ectoplasm. Then a spirit will have to pick up that ectoplasm and associate with its own fluids and use a third fluid to make it happen. And we know there is a very rare thing that it's very difficult, that it's not easy to happen, even when we have the intention in a spiritual center and everything set up for it. Very often the phenomenon cannot be produced. To be produced accidentally and make things disappear, it's not going to happen all that often. So likely, as I say here, if something disappear, most likely it's because of your carelessness. Then do not fault the spirit as much as I would like to do so. Okay, questions?
But just because something, let's say that you run out everything and you get to the conclusion that something really disappeared, but that does not mean that the fluid that is taken from the medium in order to make that happen, it's from the person itself, right? If the person is a medium.
Would have to be from a medium, but maybe the object that is missing may not belong to that medium, may belong to someone else, or may belong to that medium. But if it's required the permission or the participation of a more evolved spirit, I find this to be very hard, very rare to happen. And if it's to happens with the permission or even the participation of a more evolved spirit, we have to assume that it's for a good cause. But for us to have things disappearing, our our belongs disappearing, it's very hard to accept that it's a good thing, right?
Elmo, you mentioned something before regarding uh, physical foods and everything that the spirit can do to kind of help on that phenomena. Do we have any studies on that?
No,
Not only for the appartention itself, but for other types of mediumship?
no, was all created from my mind. I swear to you. I have never read anything like that. It's just when I read over here that they can make things disappear. I think, well, they can make the thing disappear for some good reason. Can they make things appear for some good reason? That's all. But I have never read anything, I, nothing conclusive.
No, I mean on the diet. I mean, like, what do the medium eat in order
Oh, oh, oh,
to
oh,
become
oh.
more of a more in tune? Let's say that. Let's put that way to the you know.
There is many things that deals with that, even if in the physical world, even for concentrating, even to studies, we're going to study for a test. There are things that now are good for one to eat, things that are not so good for one to eat. We know from the very beginning that for the work of mediumship, we should not have a heavy stomach for anything, because now you are taking a great load of energies and blood flow to the stomach, to the digestive center system to deal with food, while it does all that energy and blood flow should be going to the brain, to the pineal gland for the work of mediumship. Let's say if you're going to take a test, um, eat something with salt is better than eat something sweet, and a little bit of hypernatremia. It's good for the brain. Um, so there's many things. There is in this place in Rio, the doctor, what is his name again? Fortunoso, Pontoso, forget his name. In his book, he says that, um,
Frutuoso.
yes, in his book, he says that in the center, not only the medium, but all the participants, anybody who will be in the audience, must have on the days of work that at least 3 days prior to this to their work, they cannot eat red meat. They can consume fish because of nitrates, but I don't know how nitrates facilitates the phenomena. Um, we know that red meat has an enzyme um, that is there to um, um, break down proteins, break down meat. That makes the process difficult. The mediumship process difficult. I forget the name of the enzyme right now. So there is some good evidence, good reasons that there are some foods that should be avoided prior to mediumship. But just have a heavy load stomach. I mean, should not come to the spirit center, after having a heavy meal. It's not a good idea. As well, it's not a good idea to get there hungry and starving. It's also not a good idea. But balance is the ideal. And of course, no alcohol, tobacco, big no-nos, big contraindications, because it interferes with your ability to concentrate. It interferes with the production of very specific neurotransmitters. Remembering that
Yeah,
mediumship, that is a organic phenomena, and paying attention to the physical body is very important.
yeah. I think I'm gonna have to change this Sunday barbecue. Now, what do you think about that, Phil?
We're gonna have to do Saturday's barbecue now.
Yeah, almost time is up.
Ah,
Seriously?
Already?
yeah.
Yep.
Oh yeah. Okay. So let's close with our prayer, and I will make the prayer if you allow me. Elevate our hearts, our minds, to God our Father, our Creator, the provider of all things, and therefore all things are good. All things serve for our learning, for our moral intellectual progress. Even when those things may be hard, difficult to digest. We think of beloved Master Jesus Christ, the Good Shepherd who continues to shepherd us with his love, illuminating the pathway for our happiness. Never in our lives you needed more Christ's presence in our lives. Never before we needed to be vigilant with our thoughts. Never before we needed to be certain on the absolute love of God towards us. To be vigilant, to not allow anything to weaken our faith, to weaken our relationship, our fidelity with our Father. So yes, beloved Master Jesus Christ, the good spirits, our spiritual benefactors, that you may be protected and guided to undergo the trials that are ahead for us with faith that those things are good for us, that within the teachings of our Master we may find all the answers, and we may find all the resources to undergo those trials without rebelliousness, that we will be able to offer the other side of the face, that we shall never retribute hate with hate. And we ask that the good spirits to guide us, to be ourselves within our limitations, an instrument of peace that we need so much at this moment. With this in mind, we ask permission to close this meeting. So be it.